In 1986, my father came home, and I can picture it in my head. So he opened the door, and he was like carrying like big boxes into our home, and it was like, I mean, what's that? We started unboxing all of that, and we assembled this beauty. That was my first computer, and I was 1986. I was 9 years old, and it was just like this. Nope, it's 2 floppy drives, no hard drive, no mouse, and it's a beauty. I still have it, and it's well, one of my most precious how to say, things that I own, possessions. And well, I actually learned to code with it, and it's hard to convey the idea to younger people, because somehow back in the days, in the 80s, you had like things that interact with you, no? Like you had a remote control, but you could not program anything. So the feeling of typing stuff and coding a behavior, it was like, oh, I mean, this is going to change everything. And that's, you had that feeling clearly. I can feel it when I was a little kid, saying, oh my God, I mean, this opens so many possibilities. And it was that feeling that captured me from that moment. Always very grateful for my father for giving me really a career and a sense of possibility and excitement. And 30-something years later, I didn't push for it, but my kid actually started developing some games. He's 13 years old, so I promised him, look, I'm gonna demo your games in the talk that I'm going to give. It's not for the sake of demoing my kids' games, because I want to make a point. So I'm gonna show you three very quick games just for you to know. That's, you see, it's like a platformer, and that there is my wife. So it's a game where his mother is the protagonist. Achieve the mathematics book at the house. He's not speaking very well. My wife is a teacher, so he's like, hey, she needs to get the math book at home. So you will see. So he coded the whole behavior, and you're gonna see something in the bit. So there's a beer there because my kid is kind of like worried because my wife like she drinks too much beer, and it was like. So have you seen what has happened? So he came up with the idea that, okay, mom will take a beer, she will be able to jump longer and run faster, but it will destroy her life. So it will cut off her life. I said, I mean, how do you have these ideas? I mean, that's incredible. I'm going to show you another one, which is this really blew my mind. So you see he's going retro style. And he has like 2 sides. There's one player on the left and one player on the right. When you control, it's difficult to follow, you're going to see in a second. When you control both of them at the same time. And in the end, it's like a puzzle. Like you need to coordinate the moves on one side and the other, even though you're playing with them at the same time, so that he can start getting the different features of the, you'll see that in a sec. So he's moving around. You can see that it's perfectly synchronized, but one of them is faster, the other one is slower. If you don't jump, then you get killed on the right side. If you do, so I said, man, I mean, where did you get that idea? So he was, I'm blown away. And then the last one, I'll talk over it because so you can see now it's more polished. He likes the look and feel of the game a little bit better. It's a little bit more nuanced. And the point here is that you can see, you guys are all developers, and I no longer one, but I'm one at heart. And I felt it like, hey, this guy is exploring, he's looking for, what if I try this, what if I try that? Maybe I can improve on this. So it's a path of continuous improvement that I feel super connected to. And I think that's really what's at the core of what we do at, as developers. Is keep on building, let's say, levels and levels and levels. So I receive a lot of questions from a lot of people like, this is the best job in the world, but what are the keys to make a successful career in, as a developer? So I get that a lot because I feel super passionate about technology and software development. And I get this a lot from a lot of colleagues like, hey, can you tell me, can you advise my kid, he's starting in this world, I think the question, I worded in like this, like, what are the keys to make computer programming a lifelong fulfilling journey? It's like keys for success. Everyone defines success in a different way. For me, that's a good way of expressing it. So what should I do in order to make this journey a fulfilling journey? So I'll give you a metaphor, and I would say, look, picture yourself as an engineer, as a sphere, and your objective as a human being and as an engineer is to expand that sphere as big as possible. And in the end, that sphere has 3 dimensions. And your challenge is to grow that sphere, grow the volume of that sphere in those 3 dimensions. And those 3 dimensions for me, which are the key for a successful and fulfilling life as a business, as a software developer, are these axes, these dimensions. Improving on your purpose, improving on your craft, and improving on your ethics. So I'm going to cover the 3 of them, and I'm going to give you very concrete tips about each one of them. So purpose, I'm going to give you an example. You know what ESG is? I'm going to give you a real example of things that we're doing in the bank right now. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. This is a framework. It's not really a specific of banks. It's more like economically wide, which is so trying to address some of the most impending problems that the world is facing right now, like climate change and inequality and inclusion. So there is a framework that is continuously developing, which is, okay, how do we address these problems? And we, as a bank, have projects about ESG, as we call them. One of the projects is, I'm going to oversimplify this. So we need to start reporting to the public some indicators. One of the indicators is how many megawatts of renewables, renewable energy have you financed? And it's like, I mean, we don't know. I mean, we know how much have we financed. We know that we have funded 2 billion euros this year, but we don't really know how many megawatts of renewable energy have we actually financed, because in the end that would mean that we have to go to Iberdrola and say, guys, what did you do with the money that we gave you? Did you actually build something to implement renewable finance somewhere? And I'll tell you the type of questions that I get from developers when we do this, and the type of questions that I don't get from developers. Type of the questions that we get from developers is, we move immediately in the solution space. Okay, we don't have that information because we've never captured that information, but maybe in the workflow of the admission of the loans, when someone requests a loan, then we need to ask the question because we don't have that information. So we can ask Iberdrola, and we can say, hey, Iberdrola, can you tell me what are you going to do with this money? And if it's going to be financing a renewable plant, can you tell me how many megawatts are you gonna do? And developers will say, okay, we can put this in the workflow, then we can store it in this database. Maybe we need to store some certifying documentation, stuff like this. So we'll start, okay, how do we solve the problem of reporting this indicator? What you very rarely hear from developers is, why that indicator? Why are we reporting that? Who's asking for this? Who's asking the bank to publish this? What for? Who's going to use this information in the end? So my point here is the developer must know the purpose. good developer, if you want to grow on that dimension of purpose, you need to understand the purpose. You cannot just stick to, okay, this is the user story, this is the user requirement. How am I going to implement this? That's just too basic. You need to understand fully what the whole project is about. I would even dare to say the following, which I know it's a bit extreme, but you need to know the product better than the product owner. You can know the product better than the product owner. It's my own experience. If you dig enough, if you ask enough questions, if you research enough, you can know more about the product than the product owner. The product owners typically, they have a job. They do other stuff. Many times they cannot answer 3 whys consecutively. We are responsible for answering every single why up until that chain, until we have a very broad understanding of what is the problem that we're trying to solve. This is the problem space. We need to dominate the problem space. The paper that explains the problem space should be ours, the developers, not the product owners. I know it's, but it's. I think it's the way to do it. Now that has an implication for us, which is we need to learn a lot. We need to learn a lot. I think the developer journey is a lifelong commitment to learning. I think that is true already for everything that we need to learn only to do our job. If we really want to grow in the purpose line, we also need to learn about everything. You need to learn about everything that happens in the ESG. You need to know that the Paris agreements in 2015 published a certain commitments in all the countries in order to try to achieve net zero by 2030 or 2050. You need to know that. And you need to know that the publishing of those indicators that I mentioned to you is just part of that journey. And it's only the beginning, because once we start publishing those figures, many more things can be done with those figures. Maybe we can fomentar. I don't know how to say fomentar. That's foster. We can foster that banks fundamentally finance renewable finance. So you need to understand the scope of what you're doing beyond the user story. That's for sure. And it's a lifelong commitment to learning, to the point that I believe developers are nothing but learners. I think that's what really defines us when I compare, at least, with the other functions that I see in the bank. We are lifelong, we are actually, we are professional learners. So our profession is to learn fast and implement fast and integrate very fast what we learn, which gives me the challenge for you in this front, which is, do you know what is the most effective way to learn? This question needs to be always in your mind. You have to be constantly exploring, how do I learn? How do I learn more effectively? What makes me a fast learner and a fast integrator of that information? Because I'm talking right now, but you should be thinking, okay, how do I learn? How do I learn? I've learned over the years, how do I learn? So I think people learn differently. At least that's what my wife is telling me, because she's a teacher and they have this multiple intelligence theory, and there's people more attached to logical, mathematical mindset, and some others more musical. Everyone learns differently. You need to know how you learn to optimize it. I do have my own personal learning system. I know how I have learned, how I learn, and then I've been iterating, and I have my own system to learn. And I am very effective at learning. I can learn something very, very fast, actually. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips. Everyone will be different. But you know what a casting is? Then you write it down, you Google it, and, and you look for that. It's a casting, I think it's German for box of cards. So this has been going on for a while, but there is a specific sociologist, German I think it's German or Austrian sociologist that developed a system of index cards. So he was reading, he was taking notes, he was linking notes with one another, and he had a massive room with index cards. And the guy had, I think it's one of the most prolific writers of the history. And when he was asked, how can you produce so many books? So well, it's all in the system of the boxes and the cards. So there is a specific system called Zettelkasten, which is for some people a good way to learn. One thing that I've learned about myself, for instance, is that I learn. Some people learn by doing. Many of us in the development space, that's how you can learn a lot by teaching as well. So if you force yourself to teach, you are going to learn a lot, and you're going to learn a lot super fast. I do that teaching, and I do that writing as well. So I'm going to give you another tip, which is this concept of building a second brain. That you can YouTube that. So Tiago Forte is one of these like productivity gurus that you have out there. And he postulates about this code model, which is the process is capturing information, digital capturing of information. We watch YouTube videos, we come to lectures, we read a lot of books, we read a lot of articles. So it's capturing all the information, then a system for organizing that information, a system for distilling that information, and then a process for expressing it. Writing it. I write a lot. I try to write as much as possible, and even in my job, I try to express my own ideas by writing them down. You learn a lot by this. So these are a couple of tips. You look at this Zettelkasten thing, and maybe this building a second brain is also a good idea. These are systems for personal knowledge and systems for personal learning. In the end, the objective is learn fast so that you can move on in your purpose axis. The second one is the craft. I think this is easier and pretty close to the heart of Codurance. Yeah, we are builders of tools, and we use tools to build tools. And in the end, as a craft, as an no sé, como un artesano, we need to a craftsman. We need to master our tools. We deploy our skills, we develop our skills, and we use our tools to build other tools that then other people are using. So the second goal is you need to master your tools. Problem with our craft is this. This is some companies take radar, and in the end it's a complex world. There's a proliferation of techniques, platforms, languages, tools. So in a way, it becomes like very, very difficult to answer this question. What tools should I master? So, okay, I need to master my tools. I'm a craftsman. What tools should I master? What should I concentrate on? I have that question a lot as well. And I think in these terms, I don't know if I'm right or not, but I think in these terms. You mostly think about what is not going to change. Does someone know who said this? No? I'll tell you in a second if you don't. Si tú lo sabes. No? Jeff Bezos. It was Jeff Bezos, the guy that, when he has been asked, like, hey, how did you came around with the Amazon idea? And he said, well, I just concentrated on what was not going to change. And I thought that people would still be willing to have things delivered at home. And I said, well, no matter how digital we get, in the end, people are going to still need stuff being delivered at home. And I think it's a good frame, because in the end, even in our world with such a radar, everything changing so rapidly, there are a bunch of things that do not change, really. The point is that so maybe the tools change a lot, and there's always like something new to learn, and we have this FOMO, no, fear of missing out. I mean, I need to learn Rust because Rust is the highest rated programming language in Stack Overflow, and I need to learn it. Okay, well, maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know, but the point is you should focus on mastering what changes the least And of course, you also need to learn the others, but in the end, you need to allocate your time. So I said, well, I think the tools are changing a lot. I think the languages and frames change a lot. I think the platforms change less, techniques change less. But actually, it's more than that, because you have methods and mindsets. We were introduced before, Ramon, you were saying, look, TDD, domain-driven development, refactoring, pair programming, all these things, they're going to be around for a while, no matter what tools, what languages. These are more mindsets and methods. So it certainly is a good investment of our time. They're not going to go away anytime soon, that I believe. But I can go even deeper in the stack, because we have patterns and principles. We were talking about cohesion and coupling. I mean, these concepts are not going to go away. Yeah, as you mentioned, they're universal concepts. So you need to master those concepts as much as the principles, architectural principles, the ideas around clean architecture, design patterns. Design patterns, for me, it's somehow like mind blown when you are introduced to the concept of design patterns, because you've been developing for a while, and suddenly you realize that at a higher level of abstraction, you can actually solve the problems without entering into the implementation of the problems, because really there are common patterns. So you have to master those patterns, because those patterns repeat themselves time and again. And this is something, so the mental models, no, that Charles Munger, one of the, okay, I'm going to go. So it's similar to the concept of mental models in the sense that there are models in which problems can be decomposed and approached with these type of models, these type of patterns, and they are very replicable from one problem to another. But I can go even more. I mean, it's you can also master your IDE. ¿Cómo se? IDE. How do you pronounce this? IDE. You can master your IDE. I was saying, can you work in your IDE without touching the mouse? That's how you should be working. If you're touching the mouse, you're not mastering your IDE. So go and learn how to do that. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's a good use of time. But I can go even lower in the stack and say, well, actually typing. If you cannot type up 200 words per minute, you're also not mastering your fundamental tool, which is your typing all the time. So you can actually go and say, yeah, I can actually master that. But I can even go down, even below typing, which is, what is the fundamental tool that we use as developers? Fundamental tool that is not going to change, at least while we are alive, which is your own body and your own mind. That's really the technology that we are using to interact with the other technology. We're nothing but a bunch of technology. So do you know how to manage your body and mind to achieve peak performance? Maybe it's a better use of your time than learning Rust, I believe. You're going to be with your body and your mind for a while, I guess. So I think it's, think about a full stack developer, like it's more like, no, it's a full stack human being. You are going all the way down, and you are devoting time and attention to master every single aspect of your stack. And we get thrilled by the upper side because it changes a lot. It's very visible, it's very noisy, but actually the important stuff happens at the bottom. And in the end, that is fundamental to how we operate and how we perform as developers. Couple of references is starting to touch already, like The Art of Learning is a safe book to recommend. It's Josh Waitzkin. Josh Waitzkin is a very, very curious guy. Has anyone seen this movie called In Search for Bobby Fischer? The Search for Bobby Fischer. It's a chess movie. So it's a prodigy boy that is discovered in New York, and then Josh Waitzkin is the boy. So he's a prodigy at chess. he went all the way up to be world champion of chess, which for the US was a big, big, big deal, because obviously this space was dominated by the Russians at the time. And it's, but the fundamental thing that blows your mind is the guy was a world champion of chess. One day he decided to quit. He decided to go into meditation and martial arts, and he became the world champion of a Taiwanese martial art. And he was like, I mean, this guy is world champion of chess, and then suddenly decides to quit, goes to do martial art, and he becomes the world champion of martial art. This book distills what he says is, it's not that I'm superhuman, I'm just super good at learning, and I'm going to tell you what's my structure for learning. So I think it's meaningful. And the other one is essentially yoga. So yoga would be, if you go there, it would be like the Hindu tradition for the optimization of the performance of mind and body for whatever purpose. We can use it as well for development. So that's, that was the second axis, which is master your craft. But mastering your craft is going much deeper than maybe what we think. And the third one is ethics. So sometimes it happens when, so when a developer just goes out of the university or a bootcamp or something and joins an organization, it's hard to adapt because you are an individual, but then you're integrating into a team. And honestly, I haven't seen that many professions that are so much team-based than development. You mentioned it before. It's not about the individual, it's more about the team. So in a way, the concept and the goal is you as an individual need to be willing to merge into something bigger. And this is very, very profound, I would say. A book is just practices to merge yourself into something bigger that other people are going to have to be interacting with today and in the future. All those practices and becoming a clean coder is just essentially the acknowledgement that you're not working for yourself, that you're working for a bigger organization, and that many people will interact with you and many people will interact with your work. So that's the fundamental idea is that. And I believe there's a lot of ego, you probably have seen it, there's a lot of ego in the development world. And I think a lot of that ego is that, and again, it's something very profound, is that we tend to identify ourselves with our work, which is very difficult to understand. We are not our work, but we believe that our work, because we put so much passion, so much of our creativity, so much of our time, you believe that when someone judges your work, they're judging you. And you cannot avoid feeling that. We are identified with our work. And the whole challenge as human beings is we are not our work. And we have to detach from it. So the concept, the very profound, very, very difficult to achieve, again, a lifelong journey, is how can you stop identifying with your work so that you can detach and be able to merge into something which is bigger. I have some suggestions here. So, and it's somehow abstract. It's this idea that process over product. So we don't obsess about the results. We obsess about the process. That's very Zen-like. I was mentioning Zen and the art of computer programming is the important thing is the journey, it's not the destination. So you have to focus on the right practices. You have to focus on practicing. You have to focus on the journey. You don't have to focus on the destination. So this helps detach yourself and stick to the immediate need of the team and the immediate need of your work. The second one is also a pretty profound, let's say, Hindu concept, which is the idea of selfless action, which is I do, and I don't care about the reward or the punishment. I just do because I do. I do because it's what I need to do. And the results, I'm no concern, they're no concern of mine. I do what I need to do, and I do what I need to do every single second, every single minute, every single day, and I don't really care about the rewards or the punishment that my action is gonna it's gonna carry. It's a little bit of the karma idea, and it's also related to, sorry, because I was supposed to introduce you. One other thing that you can do is to shower every day. You know where I'm going, no? So the act of getting into the shower and cleaning yourself and reflecting. So showering is an act, is a symbol that we live in society, and that people are going to be close to us, and that you're going to be clean for them. You're going to smell well for them. So every day you get into the shower and you say, look, it's not about myself, it's about my team and my teammates. I'm going to be the best smelling developer in the team today. And it's an act of altruism, and you give away yourself, because that's what it is. Everyone that has a pair programmed with someone that didn't follow this know that this is probably more important than it seems, even though it's a bit like, but it's really a symbol, and you can do it every day. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna go to work today, and I am gonna be a good teammate for my team, and I'm gonna smell great. I was going to mention that, well, don't worry about this, because so that's why what I advocate, that before we talk about clean code, we need to talk about clean developers. So it's so maybe next book is, okay, how can a developer be so clean that really pair programming with that guy is a gift on a given day. So jokes apart, so quick recap. So first we work on the problem space. We need to master our purpose. We need to be the person that knows the most in a room about the product, the problem that we are trying to solve. Second, in the solution space, we need to master our tools, but we need to think of it cleverly and not limited to a certain scope. We are full stack, and we go all the way. And work ethics, we merge into something bigger. It's not about us. It's about our teams. It's about the organizations that we work for. The questions that we always need to have in our minds is, how can I learn more effectively? How can I achieve peak performance? What do I need to learn to achieve peak performance? And how can I detach from my work? And these three questions, you're never going to solve them. You will still be asking them with 70 years, 80 years in your deathbed. You can still ponder about these questions and not figure them out. But these are really North Stars to guide us into that. And then some key ideas, as I mentioned, building a second brain, so using technology to help us learn faster. That's something that we can do. Thinking on the idea of a full stack human being, we are using a huge stack of technology to do our work, starting with ourselves and ending with the Rust programming language. We need to go all the way down to optimize and master every single tool that we use, including our own bodies and minds. And work ethics, become a clean developer. Just shower every day, come to the office smelling great, and feeling that yeah, you're doing it for the team and for the organization. And there's one thing there, which is so I was mentioning the size of the sphere, and that we should improve ourselves and grow and grow and grow in all of them to become as large as possible. And there's also another comment that I want to make, which is, I do not think that external factors influence our capacity to grow that sphere. It's not really the place where you work. It's not really your boss. It's not really the project that you're working with. It's on us. So many times we attribute to external factors, this is it's not a good place to work, and this, you can grow in all dimensions anywhere that you work if you put the right mindset to it. So I think we should not obsess that much about, hey, am I in the right place or not the right place? There might be some of that, but it's 80%, 90% is on us. Being able to grow in every single place that I've been, and it's always been my attitude, and I think somehow the karma has paid me back, because I did well, let's say, even though I failed at staying a developer, which is something that I regret right now. But I would say that I've been very grateful and very successful in many angles, and I think it's because I always felt that it was always on me. So it's in my hands to grow in every single aspect. I'm not gonna complain. I'm just gonna be I would say radical candor in the feedback. Fine, but in the end, it's on us. So, and that's it. That's what I wanted to say. So, thank you. Thank you.